This week on the podcast, we're going to talk about how to unlock your potential with your financial strategy and your retirement strategy and all that good stuff on Red Zone Retirement Program, Simple Investing, Smart Future with Coach John Mears. Let's get into it.
In football, the red zone is where a team has to make small adjustments to ensure victory. As you approach retirement, you also need to make small adjustments to ensure success. This is the Red Zone Retirement Program with registered investment advisor and enrolled agent John Mears of Mears Money Management.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome into the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with Coach and I as we talk investing, finance, and retirement. Coach, it sounds very coachy. Let's unlock our potential.
Yes,
right? It sounds like something you would say to a player.
Yeah, we want to max. We want to squeeze every ounce we can out of the roster. When we're talking about football, we want to find out what guys can do, what your strengths and your weaknesses, and what you can and can't do.
Yeah,
that's kind of what my job as an advisor is, to try and do that with my clients. Is we can't just have a one size fits all. It's just impossible to do that. So part of my job is to squeeze every ounce out of what your financial resources may be, so that you have the retirement that you've always dreamed of.
Well, you're the resource here. So that's going to be a little bit of the focus, I think, on the conversation. So let's just kind of start with, I'm not sure if we've gotten into this much before or not, but what got you in? You've been doing this a long time. What got you into it? And, just kind of how'd you get here?
It's a great question. And I have an easy answer for this. Without going back to my childhood, because I was a nerd that followed stocks when I was in third and fourth grade. But really, in my professional life, I tell people I'm a reformed tax preparer. Okay. I had been doing taxes since got out of college and worked for a CPA and all that kind of stuff, and then had a thriving tax practice for a number of years.
Okay,
and actually grew to a fairly large tax practice. But over the years, I kept seeing really bad advice. People would come in with their 1099s, or they'd be saying, "Hey, my financial advisor wants to know if this is okay, or what the consequences of," and I'd see stuff, and I'm like, who are these people?
Why are you
Who's
doing
giving this advice out there?
Yeah.
Not that every single bit of advice was bad, but a lot of it was. And so over the years, I eventually got my securities license while I was doing taxes, but didn't really do a whole lot with it. And then finally, a little over a decade ago, I was kind of fed up. I was kind of tiring of taxes anyway. Taxes are very after the fact, here, fix this problem. Whereas financial planning is more proactive. Let's keep it from becoming a problem in the first place, and let's get ahead of everything. And I just felt there was a need for unbiased, I know that sounds corny, but unbiased advice as a fiduciary. That's one thing that I really didn't know about the industry until I actually sold my tax practice and focused on financial planning, is what the value of fiduciary was. You can have a reasonable investment advice,
sure,
which is different than fiduciary. So as long as it's something where you're not screwing somebody over, you're allowed to do that. Most financial planners out there are not fiduciaries. They're allowed to just give advice that can help them, give them commissions, as long as it's not totally screwing over the client. Yeah. With a fiduciary, I have to provide advice that could even possibly harm me in a way, as long as I have to give advice that's in the best interest of the client. I found that refreshing, actually. And so that was something where I just kind of really attacked that, 10 years ago, really started going down that path to provide the best possible financial advice for people. And then as I got into the industry, it became quite evident to me that retirees had a greater need than what we might call the accumulators. The accumulators were a little bit simpler. Basically, save and don't spend more than you make. We'll call that the Dave Ramsey years. So that's really all. But once you reach retirement, there are so many different things that we have to go over that can really create challenges in your retirement. That's really where I started my focus, probably about 5 years ago or so, where I just focus on retirees because they're the ones that really, 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 really need my help, and we can get we can really affect people and change people's lives.
But still having that tax angle obviously now is very beneficial because, to your point, you can now kind of marry those two things. You're thinking about the immediate, but you're also thinking about the future tax implications,
Absolutely.
Which obviously is a huge piece of the equation as well.
What I tell people, I know we all want to differentiate ourselves, and it's hard in this industry to differentiate because there's a lot of other advisors. Hey, I work with retirees as well. I do think my long career as a tax advisor helps me. And I do think that it helps differentiate me. And I also believe that taxes are still the biggest elephant in the room when it comes to your retirement. I think navigating the taxes, you'd be surprised how many people come in that have their advisor has not really done any true tax planning, where we go through that in depth with my clients at least twice a year. I tell people it's a year-round sport. We have to do it constantly because, and I've said this on other podcasts, if the market goes down, it has so far always come back. However, when taxes are taken from you, it's gone forever. So we need to consider taxes possibly even more than what your portfolio is returning. Now, I'm maybe overstating the case slightly there, but still, taxes are a huge part of what goes into your long-term planning. It's always changing, takes a lot of navigation, takes a lot of work, and it's something that has to be done. And that's what sets me apart from other advisors, I believe, but also is something that I think if you're a viewer or listener to this, I think you need to be paying attention to this. If not me, another person that's talking about taxes. That is the most important part.
Well, we often hear about the 60-40 portfolio as far as an investment portfolio. Maybe that's the same kind of breakdown for the the income market needs and then the taxation 60-40, or if not even 50-50, because it's to your point, it's pretty huge. Yeah. Well, you mentioned the planning part of it, so let's just talk a little bit about the process then. Break down just quickly, what's the interaction look like? I mean, we're doing the podcast now, right? We give away a couple of your books on the show. We make it easy for people to grab a hold of those. So there's ways for folks to get to know you more, do some education, do some research on you, whatever that looks like, but just kind of, what's the overall process look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do the referral process right now, and that's still where the majority of my new onboarding clients come from, is just referrals. People are excited to work with me. We're providing good advice, and they want that whenever the topic may come up. Obviously, nobody's being pushy, going, "Hey, go to my financial advisor," but sometimes it might pop up. And when they do, I feel very humbled and honored that people bring my name up. One thing that any of my clients, existing clients, they tend to do now is, because of the podcast and this YouTube channel, they just send people here. That's the easiest thing. That way people can get to know me, see if I know what I'm talking about. And then once they have watched some videos and listened to podcasts, and once they feel comfortable that we're on the same page, then from there, there's you just go to bookachatwithjohn.net and you schedule some time. That's where we always start. On my website, I have it listed right there, how my process works and who we serve. So if you go to mearsmoney.com, it says it right there. It's very transparent.
And to make it easy, we'll have it in the description of the show notes on whatever platform you're using. So if you just want to click on one of the links, you can. So you don't have to necessarily remember anything. You can just click the link. But
it's pretty easy. I always try to start with a 15-minute conversation. I like to just get to know somebody. This does not differentiate me from a lot of advisors. I think there's only so many ways we can go. So I always start with a short phone call before anybody's laid out a dime, in advice, for advice with me. Go ahead and talk to me. Just find out if we have a love connection or not. And once we find that out, we can say, okay, by the way, we sound like we talk alike. We laugh at the same jokes. That's okay. Or occasionally, and I actually spend some of this time trying to talk people out of using me, because I want clients that are all in. And so if you're not all in, that's okay. But that's one of the things I try and go through. But I will try and find out if there's even a need. And I've told people before, you don't really need me. You got it. You're close. And I do try and give out as much free content, if you will, free advice within the confines of what we're doing. But I want to provide value to every single person I touch. I want to provide value. And after that phone call, then we decide, do you want to meet for maybe an hour in what we call a discovery meeting, where we can actually start getting into, hey, like we've talked about in other podcasts, I inherited this, or I have saved for that, or this is what my bills are going to be, or I want to move to Tennessee. How does that affect things? And we start getting into what your goals are, what your needs are. You still haven't hired me, but we're at least finding out what is all required. Once we go through that 1 hour discovery meeting, and again, I've provided as much value as I can. At that point, you decide whether or not you want to hire me, and we'll actually hire, there's a financial planning fee. It's on the website From there, that is the onboarding fee. We'll actually give you a written financial plan at the next meeting, which will be another 1 hour meeting where we just kind of go through it. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, step A, it's written down too. It's all in black and white. There's no, in my opinion, there's no misunderstandings about the recommendations I'm providing and the backup to that and the course of action that's required to take. It's all very, very, very well spelled out, but it's also simple. It's not a thick 100-pager. It's a lot of it is graphic, so that you can see how the process works. But I do try and keep it simple, yet at the same time complex enough to meet every client's needs.
Well, there you go. So that's the kind of the planning process. And I love, we got to find out if there's a love connection or not. And with that said, if you want some extra resources, check this out. We'll be back in 2 and 2. John has a couple of free books, Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California, that reveal exactly how you can experience zero taxes in retirement and overcome the IRS lien on your 401k, IRA, and 403b, which could threaten your future lifestyle. These are complimentary, so all you have to do to pick these up 100% free is just stop by rescuemyretirement.net. That's rescuemyretirement.net. Fill in the basic info and he'll ship those out to you immediately. That's rescuemyretirement.net for a copy of Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California. All right, we're back from the little book break there. I had to go with the tip of the hat to Chuck Woolery, for those who are old enough to know the 2 and 2 comment from the Love Connection. Good stuff there. All right, so we've completed the plan. We've got to meet you. We know that you're our dude. We feel that Love Connection. We're cruising on the love boat, whatever. And we've done the plan. We've built it. We've learned everything. We've structured it out. So what's the next steps, right? So sometimes people think, okay, well, great. You got me the plan. And we're going to follow it. Now what do I do? Right. So now hopefully you enjoy retirement and then we keep an eye on things. Yeah.
Yes. So there's the implementation. So we do some hand holding there. So if there's, to get things managed by Mears money, there may be a transfer of assets, or maybe we will help you out as much hand holding as we can possibly do. There is going to be some work usually by you, the client, to help us out. We can't do it all without your help. Sure. We can do as much as we can. But then the process from there, ongoing, the first year, there is a lot of hand holding and there's going to be a lot of nuance the first year. And I give people the step-by-step, month-by-month, layout of what we do the first year. Now, that first year could be compressed to 3 months or 6 months, or it may take longer. Depends on you, not me. We're willing to accelerate or decelerate depending on what your needs are. And everybody's different. We're not out to be pushy. But we will finish the full plan and implementation. Usually we'll call it in a year. Then after that, we'll meet semi-annually. I always tell people we would like to meet in February, March during tax season, and then late in the year around October, so we can, we have enough information where we can do some tax planning then too. So taxes are at the forefront both times, in March and in October. March, because that's in the middle of tax season, and in October, because we're trying to get ready for the next tax season, and we're trying to really roll up our sleeves. And I call my fall meetings a strategic and a tactical meeting, because we're really trying to look at the strategies and then what are the tactics to achieve those. And we meet for about an hour, both times. And then in between, if you have other needs, you can call us. And there's educational stuff coming up like this every single month.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point, you can obviously see that taxes stay a focus, because you just talked about when you meet and kind of looking at all those things. So, I think the biggest hurdle, John, and we'll kind of wrap it up maybe with this, is the biggest hurdle sometimes for people. It's not like we talked about, sometimes the accumulation phase. Building it's not as hard as the distribution phase, as the preservation phase, which is retirement. And also the big hurdle is the mindset. Right. All right. So you build the plan for somebody, you implement it. Fantastic. That's great. But sometimes people just struggle with, man, this is just weird, because retirement's a freaking gear shift. Right. And I've seen people, they either are like, oh my God, I wish I had done this sooner. This is the greatest thing ever. And other folks are like, I'm so flipping bored, or I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? And I think that the year leading up to the actual retirement day, is a little nerve-wracking. And so I think there's that struggle piece, right? And just how's it all click? And I think having an advisor is helpful because you've seen hundreds of people do this, and you can kind of share stories and help talk them through it.
Absolutely. I think the anecdotal stuff that I can bring up in a client meeting, because oftentimes Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and I just got done with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, who had very similar, needs and wants. And I can usually, in fact, almost all the time, especially in the discovery meetings, I just use examples. I just tell stories. This is how this person did it. This might fit with you. This is how this person did that. That might fit. That might work with you. And so I kind of go along with just, I hate to say it, just experience.
Yeah.
Through the school of hard knocks, I've seen what people are okay with, where their fears may be about implementation. There has to be a commitment to the process from the client. I get that can be a little bit difficult sometimes. I have one client I'm working with right now that they're just going really, really slow. They just are. They know what they want to do. They're just not into it as much as other people may be. And I just kind of have to work with that. But there is commitment that I need from the client, and also the willingness to delegate as well. So that's something where if you're somebody that's always been hands-on and you can't let go, we're probably not a good fit. Not just me, but any advisor.
That's a great point. I mean, you have to be willing to take some recommendation, and then have that exchange of ideas, right? Because you have done this a lot, so that's very important. And I think people just kind of feel like sometimes, hey, just do it all for me. Well, you can't do that either, right?
It's a balance.
Your advisor should not care more about your retirement plan than you do.
I say that all the time. I tell people, I take you seriously. I tell people this. I take you seriously. I hope you take yourself seriously, because if I'm trying to get this done, that's because it's in your best interest.
Yeah.
So I actually do say that to people quite often. Well, maybe not often, but sometimes I have to tell people that, because they're not getting things done that is in their best interest, which I think as a fiduciary, part of my job is to kind of nudge people along. Again, I can't make them do anything, but that's that balance there between, I need a little bit of help from you, not a lot, but a little bit, maybe to get something done. On the other hand, you got to be able to delegate and let us do what we can do once we have once we've gotten to where we can just take care of it for you and do the white glove treatment that we like to do for you. So,
well, you got to turn on the coaching thing sometimes, because I mean, honestly, a lot of what financial advisors do, and you're definitely, as you said, you've nerded out before, you're a nerd on numbers and so on and so forth. But you wear multiple hats as an advisor. We'll leave it with this, right? So you wear the financial numbers guy hat, but then you wear the coaching hat. Hey, look, I'm as a fiduciary, I'm going to tell you the straight skinny. And if you don't do this, you're going to have to run laps, kind of thing. And then also you have to wear the counselor hat. Sometimes it's like, okay, look, we got to talk through this scenario, or people. I mean, I think the great value that advisors bring to the table, John, a lot of times is, I've got this idea. I'm the client. I'm the end user. I've got this idea, or I've got this thing, or whatever it is. I take it to you and I go, what do you think about this? Right? We do that when we take email questions sometimes. And you can say, hey, this could have merit. Let's explore that. Let's run the numbers. So then you see where all those hats kind of come together, because you're like, this is a great idea, or this might not work, and here's why.
Yeah, that is something that does happen. And I'm usually I don't like to call myself a no person, but I will tell you what the downside may be.
Sure. You're not the money police, right?
As long as you know what's going to happen. The typical thing may be somebody who hasn't told me they've invested in some real estate. Nothing wrong with real estate, but as long as you understand that was part of what we had planned for something else, and that it's illiquid now. So those are things that if you're okay with that, then we're all okay. We're all still have that love connection. But that is, again, I'm not going to say no to that. I'm just going to give you the pros and cons to that. But that's just one little thing. But all sorts of things can go that way. So
so I guess maybe we titled this wrong by calling it Unlocking Your Potential, because we really talked about you and the focus and how the program works, or how your system works. And how you work with your clients. But I mean, honestly, if you're thinking about that, the reason people turn to financial advisors is they do want to unlock their better financial future, because we don't do this every day. Like, John, you can't come and do my job as well as I do, because I do it every day. And I can't do yours. And that's the same kind of thing. And again, growing the money, this DIY movement over the last few years of building your own wealth has definitely been easier. Technology and advancements and all that stuff has made it easier. But until you start looking really closely at retirement and what happens when you pull one lever and how it affects a bunch of other stuff, it becomes a little daunting, right?
Yeah.
So unlock your potential by working with somebody who can help
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. By going through our process, that does unlock the potential because you're going to be limited. This is a little self-serving to say this, but without working with me, you're going to be limited in your own little bubble as to what you can do.
Well, you don't know
I
what
get
you don't
out
know.
of that bubble. So
Yeah. I mean, I know it's a cliche thing. We've talked about that. There's reasons for the cliches happen in certain industries because it is what it is, right? Just like that one I just said. But you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't do this every day, then how the hell are you going to avoid the pitfalls of them? You know,
That's right.
you can't, right? So, well, anyway, we hope that helps you out a little bit, you know, and good conversation. And again, it's a great resource. You know, listen to the podcast or watch it on YouTube or whatever. It's a great way to get to learn John a little bit more about who he is and his philosophies. That's kind of really what this conversation this week was about. We'll get back to more X's and O's like we always do on future episodes. So to catch those, subscribe to the podcast, please, on whatever app you like. You know, again, if you enjoy it, you know, feel free to do so. Hit the subscribe button, the thumbs up button, and ring the notification bell so you catch new episodes when they come out. And as always, if you need help and you're ready to sit down with a qualified pro, please make sure you talk with a qualified professional before you take any action. Go check out the links we have below on how to get in touch with Coach here. You can go to mearsmoney.com or you can go to bookachatwithjohn.net. But we got all that in the show descriptions to make it easy for you. So just click on the link. And that's going to do it. We'll get out of here. Thanks for your time. We always appreciate you here on Red Zone Retirement Program. Simple investing, smart future with the one and only Coach John Mears. We'll see you next time.
Advisory services offered through Mears Money Management, Inc., an RIA registered in the states of California and Texas. California Department of Insurance License number 0685203.